Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting something like this, but here we are. I, 34M, have been married to Jessica, 31F, for 7 years now. We've been together since college, and honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing out of the ordinary, or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there, but I was too blind to see them. Jessica started being more distant, staying late at work, and constantly on her phone. I chalked it up to stress or her being overwhelmed with her job as a project manager. But the more I look back on it now, the more I realize how naive I was. The little lies started piling up. Unexplained girls' nights out. Her phone mysteriously dying when I called, and her increasing indifference toward me. Still, I never suspected that anything this big was going on. It wasn't until a work party a few weeks ago that things took a complete turn for the worse. Let me explain. So, like I said, it all went down at a work party. I work as a systems analyst for a decent-sized company, and this event was supposed to be a casual networking thing. Jessica came with me as she usually does. She's always been the social butterfly, charming my colleagues, laughing at their jokes, making sure we looked like the perfect couple. Anyway, everything seemed normal enough until my boss, Mark, 50M, an arrogant prick with a history of making everyone uncomfortable, approached me. He had a drink in his hand, that fake smile on his face that never quite reached his eyes. He leaned in, and in front of Jessica, who was standing right beside me, he said, "Tomorrow, your wife is going on vacation with me, or you're fired." Now, I laughed it off at first. I thought it was one of those inappropriate office jokes, the kind that makes you cringe but you shrug it off because, well, it's your boss. But before I could respond, Jessica chimed in. And what she said still sends chills down my spine. Without skipping a beat, she looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I agree." Felt like the floor dropped from beneath me. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. She agreed. My wife, the woman I've shared my life with for 7 years, just agreed to go away with my boss as if it were the most normal thing in the world. What the hell was going on? Mark gave me this smug look, shrugged, and walked off like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Jessica just stood there, sipping her wine, not even looking at me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a joke. This was real. Something had been going on behind my back, and I had no idea. I excused myself and left the room, my mind racing. I needed air. I needed to process what I just heard. But as I walked out, I started thinking about all the times things hadn't added up. Her late nights, the weekend business trips, the sudden coldness toward me. It all started to click. I stayed outside for what felt like forever, trying to calm myself down. When I finally walked back in, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. Everyone was whispering, glancing at me, like they all knew something I didn't. I found Jessica talking to Mark again, laughing like nothing had happened. I was done. I walked right up to her and told her we were leaving, and for once, she didn't argue. We left the party in silence. But I wasn't about to let it go. I knew I had to find out what the hell was going on. So later that night, while she was in the shower, I went through her phone. I'd never done it before, never felt like I needed to. But something inside me snapped, and that's when I found it. Text after text between her and Mark. Explicit. Gross. They had been sneaking around for months. Not just at work, either hotel rooms, vacations, you name it. She was sending him photos, videos, and in some of the messages they joked about how oblivious I was. They even talked about what a pushover I was, how I'd never have the balls to confront her. I felt sick. My hands were shaking. How could she do this to me? How could she lie to my face every day? I put the phone down, trying to catch my breath. My whole world was collapsing around me, and the worst part was, I had no idea what to do next. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I barely slept, my mind racing through everything I had read on Jessica's phone. I had all these questions, none of which I wanted the answers to but knew I needed to ask. So, when Jessica came into the kitchen, acting all casual, I decided to confront her right then and there. "Jess?" I said, my voice barely steady. I went through your phone last night. Her face immediately went pale. She knew what was coming, and for a split second, I saw something like fear in her eyes. But just as quickly, she shifted into defensive mode. You what? She snapped, slamming her coffee cup down on the counter. You invaded my privacy? How dare you? Couldn't believe it. This was her first reaction. Not an apology, not an explanation, just anger at being caught. I wasn't having it. Don't play the victim here. I shot back, my anger rising. I saw the messages, Jessica. I saw everything. You've been sleeping with Mark for months. I know you two have been sneaking around behind my back. So, stop pretending like I'm the bad guy for finding out. There was this awkward silence. She crossed her arms, rolled her eyes, and muttered, So what? So what? I repeated, absolutely stunned. That's all you have to say? 7 years of marriage, and you throw it all away for Mark? You didn't even try to deny it. She shrugged like it was nothing. Look, you've been boring, Tom. You're predictable. Mark is exciting, and he actually does things for me. He makes me feel alive. And honestly, I didn't think you'd ever find out, and even if you did, what were you going to do about it? You never stand up for yourself. I stood there in shock. It was like I was having an out-of-body experience, listening to her tear me apart like I meant nothing. I wasn't even worth a decent lie, let alone any remorse. She was completely unapologetic, almost proud of what she had done. When I finally spoke, my voice was cold. So this is it? You're done with me? Just like that. She sighed dramatically, like this conversation was inconveniencing her. I'm not done with you, Tom. I'm just saying maybe we both need some space. Look, I'll keep seeing Mark if I want to. If you want to stay married, fine, but don't expect things to go back to the way they were. You either deal with it or we call it quits. Up to you. She said it like she was offering me a business deal, like our marriage was something she could negotiate. My blood was boiling at this point, but I couldn't even speak. I just turned and walked out of the house, slamming the door behind me. I needed to think. I needed to get as far away from her as possible before I did something I'd regret. The drive was a blur. I don't even know where I was going. I just needed to escape. My chest felt tight, and my mind kept replaying her words, her tone, the casual way she dismissed our entire relationship. 7 years. 7 damn years. And she just tossed it aside like it meant nothing. I parked in some random lot and just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. I wasn't angry anymore. I was broken. Felt like a punch to the gut. And I couldn't breathe. All those years we spent building a life together, all the trust, all the love, it was all a lie. How long had she been faking it? How many nights had she been with him while I was sitting at home, trusting her? I felt pathetic. How could I have let it get this far without seeing it? I kept replaying every little thing I missed. The long showers, the unexplained absences, the times she snapped at me for no reason. It was all so clear now, and it made me feel like the biggest fool alive. I stayed in that car for hours, alternating between anger and sadness. Part of me wanted to go back and scream at her, demand she explain herself. But the other part of me felt too defeated to even try. I didn't know what to do. The life I thought I had was gone, just like that. And then I realized I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't let her walk all over me and disrespect me like that. But I wasn't ready to face the idea of ending things either. Divorce? It seemed so final. Could I really go through with it? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time it would be different. By the time I finally drove back home, I had made up my mind. I couldn't let Jessica's betrayal define me. I wasn't going to let her or anyone else treat me like a doormat. I was done being the nice guy she could walk all over. But I wasn't sure about divorce just yet. I needed to see how things would play out when I confronted her again, with a clear head this time. When I got home, Jessica was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I stood there for a moment watching her. How had I ever thought she cared? She barely looked up at me, just gave a quick glance and went back to whatever Instagram post had her attention. We need to talk, I said, my voice calm, but firm. She sighed, not even bothering to put her phone down. What now, Tom? I'm not going to let you keep doing this, I said, sitting down across from her. You're not going to see Mark anymore. If you want to stay married, that's over. No more lies, no more sneaking around. If you can't do that, then we're done. She rolled her eyes and let out a sarcastic laugh. You really think you can tell me what to do? Please, Tom. You don't have it in you. You never have. You want me to stop seeing Mark? Why? You think you're suddenly going to be the man I need? You're not exciting. You're just safe, reliable. And honestly, I've outgrown that. Her words hit hard, but this time I was ready for them. Then maybe it's time you go, I said. If I'm so boring, pack your stuff and leave. Go stay with Mark. See how long that lasts. That got her attention. She finally looked up from her phone, her eyes narrowing. You're really going to throw away our marriage because of one mistake? You're not even thinking straight. One mistake? You've been lying to me for months. This wasn't a one-time thing. You chose him over me again and again. Jessica stared at me for a moment, as if calculating her next move. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out the best way to manipulate the situation. But I was done being manipulated. She was losing her grip, and she knew it. You're overreacting, she finally said, standing up from the couch, crossing her arms. This whole moral high ground thing doesn't suit you, Tom. We've been drifting apart for years, and you know it. You just don't want to admit it. You want to act like you're the victim. But you've been checked out of this marriage for a long time. I could feel my fists clenching, trying to hold back the urge to shout. That's bullsh*T, and you know it. I've been here, doing everything I can to make this work. You're the one who's been running off with Mark. I wasn't checked out. I was blindsided. She threw her hands up. Fine. I admit it. I cheated. Big deal. You're acting like the world is ending. We're not in the 1950s, Tom. People have affairs all the time. Why are you so hung up on this? Her casual tone, the way she dismissed everything like it didn't matter, it was like she was trying to strip me of my feelings, to make me feel like I was the crazy one. And that's when something inside me snapped. I stood up, looking her dead in the eyes. You don't get it, do you? You don't get to decide that this doesn't matter. You don't get to decide what I should feel. You ruined this, Jessica. You chose him over me, over us. And you have the nerve to act like I'm making a big deal out of nothing? She laughed, a bitter, mocking sound. You think this is some big betrayal? You think I owe you some kind of apology? Grow up, Tom. People move on. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have had to find excitement elsewhere. That was it. The final straw. I realized at that moment that there was no saving this. There was no conversation, no reconciliation that could fix the kind of contempt she had for me. She didn't respect me. She hadn't for a long time. And suddenly I didn't care anymore. You know what? I said, my voice steady. You can have Mark. Go be with him. I'm done. Her face flickered with something. Maybe surprise, maybe fear, but she quickly masked it. Good, she snapped. I'm glad. I'm tired of pretending with you. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just going to let her walk away with a smug smile on her face. I didn't say anything else after that. I let her think she had won, that she had the upper hand. Over the next few days, she started packing her things, making snide remarks whenever she saw me around the house, acting like she couldn't wait to move on to her new life with Mark. She thought she had me beaten, that I'd just slink away, devastated, while she carried on with her affair. But I had a plan. See, I knew things about Mark, things Jessica didn't know. For one, Mark was married too, and his wife, Lindsay, had no idea what was going on. So I did the only thing I could think of. I contacted Lindsay. I sent her everything. The texts, the photos, all of it. I told her what had been happening between Mark and Jessica. The next few days were chaos. Mark's life fell apart. His wife kicked him out, filed for divorce, and the whole affair became the talk of the office. Everyone knew what he had done, and it wasn't long before HR got involved. By the end of the week, Mark was fired for violating the company's code of conduct. As for Jessica, well, she didn't see it coming. She thought she was about to start a new life with Mark, but instead, she got dumped. Hard. Mark wanted nothing to do with her once his own life blew up. She tried to act like she didn't care, but I could see the cracks starting to show. The smug look she'd been wearing for days slowly faded into something closer to panic. And then came the cherry on top. You see, I'd been talking to a divorce lawyer for weeks, getting everything in order. When I handed her the papers, her face was priceless. She didn't expect me to actually go through with it. She thought I'd be too weak to make a move, that I'd beg her to stay. But I was done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, the way she belittled me. I was ready to move on, and now she had nothing left. When I handed Jessica those divorce papers, her face twisted into something I hadn't seen before. Panic. For the first time, she didn't have a smart remark or some biting comment ready to cut me down. She just stared at the papers, her mouth slightly open, trying to process what was happening. "You're serious?" she finally asked, her voice a little shaky. "You're actually doing this?" "Yeah, Jess," I said, feeling more confident than I had in weeks. "I'm serious. You've made it pretty clear that this marriage doesn't mean anything to you, so I'm done." She scoffed, throwing the papers onto the table like they were a joke. "You're being ridiculous, Tom. You think you're gonna just move on and be happy? You're a joke. No woman is ever going to put up with your pathetic ass. This little revenge act of yours won't change anything." Her words stung, but they didn't hurt the way they used to. I could see right through her now. She was scared. She never thought I'd actually leave. She never imagined her easy, comfortable life would fall apart so quickly. First, Mark ditched her, and now she was realizing that she was losing me too, and the life we'd built together. "Maybe you're right," I said, standing tall. "Maybe I am pathetic. But at least I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not, and I don't have to betray the people who care about me. You can try to tear me down all you want, but I'm done giving a sh*t about what you think." She glared at me, but there was nothing behind it anymore. No power. She was losing control, and I could see it was driving her crazy. She wanted to keep me under her thumb, but she'd underestimated me, and now it was all slipping away from her. The days that followed were chaotic. She tried to argue about the divorce, throwing tantrums, telling me I'd regret it. She even tried to convince me that we should work things out, but it was all a front. I knew it wasn't because she wanted to save our marriage. It was because she was scared of being alone. And me? I was done. I'd already emotionally checked out. I filed for divorce, started separating our assets, and made plans to move out. Every step I took away from her was like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. Jessica tried to make things messy, dragging the process out, but I had the evidence of her affair with Mark, and she knew that wouldn't end well for her if things went to court. Eventually, she gave in. The day she finally signed the papers was the first time I'd seen her completely defeated. No snarky comments, no bravado, just silence. Now, a few months have passed since everything blew up, and looking back, I feel like I'm finally starting to breathe again. It wasn't easy getting to this point. There were days where I felt like I'd never get over the betrayal, the lies, the way she made me feel worthless. But as time goes on, I realize how much better off I am without her. I've learned a lot from this nightmare of an experience. First off, never ignore the red flags. The signs were all there, but I was too wrapped up in the idea of who I thought Jessica was to see the truth. Trust your gut, and don't make excuses for someone who isn't treating you right. Second, stand up for yourself. For years, I let her belittle me, and I just took it because I didn't want to rock the boat. But when I finally stood up to her, when I finally demanded respect, I realized how much I had been sacrificing my own self-worth to keep the peace. No relationship is worth that. And lastly, revenge may not always be the right thing to do, but damn if it doesn't feel good sometimes. Watching Mark and Jessica's lives crumble after all the sh*t they put me through was more satisfying than I can put into words. It wasn't about being petty. It was about taking back control and showing them that I wasn't going to just roll over and take it. So, if you're out there, reading this and going through something similar, let me give you this advice. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You deserve respect, honesty, and loyalty, and if someone can't give that to you, then they don't deserve to be in your life. It's not going to be easy, but walking away from toxic people is the best thing you can do for yourself. And as for Jessica, well, last I heard, she's still trying to patch things up with Mark, but from what I can gather, he's moved on to some new office fling. As for me, I'm finally free.